Excellent job there. Could you please give them another round of applause? Please remain standing for the territorial song by Joyce Samuel Primary School. This Farmers Week will be declared officially open by Deputy Premier and Minister responsible for Natural Resources and Labor, Dr. the Honorable Kedrick Pickering. It is said by DFID, an international organization, that over 850 million people suffer from hunger, and alarmingly, this continues to rise. In light of this, we here in the BVI may not produce all the food that we need, or we may not be able to produce all the food we need, but however little we produce, we should be actually be mindful that food security is of major importance, and that is why we celebrate the farmers this week. So we want to say Happy Farmers Week to the farmers and declare this week officially open. We will now have a selection by the Kingarden Bay Baptist Church preschool. We'll have the Chief Agricultural Officer, Mr. Bevan Brathwaite, to give his remarks.
Good morning. Please allow me, on behalf of the Department of Agriculture, to extend a warm welcome to the farming community, residents, and visitors to Farmers Week 2015. This year's theme, Youth in Agriculture a Must, Food Security and Cultural Sustainability a Plus. The department, focused as it is on food security and the involvement of the territory's young people, realizes that the value of agriculture will greatly depend on its sustainable development. Systems high in sustainability make the best use of nature's goods, services, and human resources, whilst not damaging and even enhancing these assets. For decades, profitable returns from industrialized agriculture have masked and even resulted in significant environmental and health externalities, problems associated with environmental and public health issues. However, it is only recently that the scale of the costs has come to be appreciated through studies in China, Germany, United Kingdom, the Philippines, and the United States of America. These negative consequences must be avoided in BVI agriculture while we work to develop the sector. The central issues that must be considered, therefore, focus on 1. The extent to which farmers can increase production by using low-cost and traditional technologies and inputs. 2. Validation and acceptance of imported technologies and inputs, especially chemical. 3. Expansion of agricultural land by converting new lands into agriculture without losses in ecosystem services and important biodiversity. Sustaining necessary agriculture expertise by training indigenous young people in agriculture. 5. Potential for certain agricultural practices to impact the livelihoods that rely on environmental goods and services. And 6. Awareness of changing lifestyles and diets arising from increasing urbanization and health consciousness. These issues must be discussed through consultation between the Department of Agriculture, the farming community, and other relevant interests in order to determine what agricultural practices will be best for the way forward. Now that Cuba and America are considering renewed relations, the prospect of Cuba as an alternative market for American food exports in the future may further add to the vulnerability of our food supply, and indeed that of the wider region. Because we too depend on American food imports, this prospect should give us much pause for thought and consideration. This does not even take into account the expected boost in tourism and tourists' arrivals. Apart from that large market, which could potentially divert food supply and increase our susceptibility to food insecurity, Cuba has the advantage of being one of the foremost producers worldwide of organic agriculture, from bananas to prawn production. In conjunction with low agricultural wages, the island has the competitive edge and could dominate the export of organic foods. Our ambition with regards to securing a place in that particular export of niche may well be impeded. The Department of Agriculture has been working to build a platform for sustainable development in agriculture. Farmers Week gives us the opportunity to review some of these efforts, accomplishments, and challenges of our vital farming community and the department. This event is as much about interaction between farmers and consumers as it is a reflection on our culture of community cooperation and sharing. Here, healthy products are proudly displayed, appraised, and traded, hopefully stimulating marketing networks for domestic agriculture. Equally important, Farmers Week is entertaining, fun, and an opportunity for young people to showcase their talents and creativity. This year's theme, Youth in Agriculture, is a necessity to strengthen food security and sustainability. It's meant to encourage our young generation in the agricultural process. In the recent past, our celebration have also been themed on youth and technology. The different expectations of stakeholders involved in agriculture, namely farmers, agripreneurs, consumers, and environmentalists, make that sector more complex than others. Constraints including decreases in agricultural investment, natural disasters, and concerns for food security pose major challenges to small island communities with narrow natural resource bases, very limited access to appropriate technology, and aging farming populations. However, these challenges create considerable opportunities, particularly for young people to enter agriculture. We realize that agriculture today might not seem interesting and profitable enough to meet the life expectation of our youth. Moreover, national food security by itself may not necessarily be their principal motivating factor to engage, and if offered more profitable opportunities, or if they were not given the necessary resources and a real voice in the process, agriculture might not be an attractive option. Information flow, communication techniques, and other innovative techniques will become very important in the evolution of agriculture to a sustainable, profitable sector. For example, the use of social media application, among others, are being used increasingly as an aid in agricultural extension for information dissemination, idea sharing, research, and technology transfer. Our future hope is that these will be applied among our young farmers. The youth are the ones that understand these technologies. Therefore, they must be empowered to develop the solution that can transform agriculture. One of the cornerstone policy initiatives of the Department of Agriculture has been to attract and engage young people in agriculture. Efforts have also been made to sensitize both active and prospective farmers in the area of agribusiness. To that end, 7 men and women 17 to 23 years old have been selected to work and apprentice at the Department of Agriculture. We hope to make it possible to twin these individuals with older farmers in the community at some future time. With respect to agribusiness, the department hosted and facilitated a training workshop sponsored by First Caribbean Bank in April 2013. We hope to repeat that event in 2015. Finally, whilst looking to the future, it is important not to forget where we are and what took us there. While we are occupied about empowering today's youth, it must be remembered that the majority of our present farmers who carried us along are not youth, and that they are not used to technology. It is equally imperative that we develop solutions and processes that can help improve these farmers. Technology need not be complex and must be fitted to satisfy our agricultural objectives. With the right organization, cooperation, and discipline, we can build on traditional techniques whilst making effective use of today's technologies. This might be the way forward for agriculture, and for all we know, the interconnection to bridging our generation gap. Thank you.
It tells us that you're looking at the youth for not what they are, but what they could be. I think it's Gerda who said, if you look at someone for who they are, they may become worse. But if you look at them for what they could be, they become what they should be. So we want to look at the youth in that light. The next selection will be from the Virgin Islands School of Technical Studies.
It was all a dream.
Trying to get a youth involved with the green. Animals to breed, the society to feed. We tell me
Provide that stuff, agriculture provide that stuff. I'm talking about the
lettuce and tomatoes, cabbage and potatoes, fresh baked cabbage and some horses in the stable. Cause the plants gotta fertilize, man, you keep it fertilized. Doing these crops keep the youth out of trouble. Just trying to make a little change with a shovel. Plant more seeds, get the crops by the double.
trade off the goods.
Everybody gotta hustle, keeping the society together.
Great crops and feeding
They
them
with each other. I got a mango tree, I got a kid farm. In good hands like State Farm. The world is a cycle.
Agriculture keep us going, it is so vital. Gotta have a title, class, Eiffel. Agriculture is the reason we got life good.
Like Sable Island, promote agriculture.
If you plant seeds, it will grow.
Be educated about it. It's a part of our culture.
And if you don't know, now you know.
We'll now move to the feature address by Dr. the Honorable Kedrick Pickering, Minister responsible for Natural Resources and Labor. Thank you.
A very pleasant good morning to all of you. And thank you very much. You know, the only constant in life really is change. And there are times and there are seasons. And I'm sure most of you know that the good book says that there is a time for everything. It is a well-accepted fact that the effects of global warming and the climate change have affected food production negatively. And this territory must focus our plans for agriculture sector on ensuring that our farming mechanisms become more scientific and proficient to ensure that the industry remains viable and competitive. The trend in decreasing yields in food production globally has made it mandatory for most countries to employ counteractive measures to stall this decline. And this can be done by improving production techniques and the use of various technologies to boost the agricultural sector. As I take a look around here this morning and I reminisce a little bit, I can see with my mind's eye the number of farmers and former farmers who are either present or not present, the people who kept our farming and agricultural industry growing. I also well remember, you know, as a teenager growing up in the Long Look, Josiah's Bay area, that when you heard about exhibition, it was a big thing because you were planning for it for weeks. In fact, I remember that my late grandfather, who I spent, you know, most of my teenage years around in Josiah's Bay, Mr. Bradwick's father used to travel from that other side of the world, because that's what it was to me then, to come to Josiah's Bay to purchase cattle, to be able to continue the whole question of the industry. And that is important because in his remarks, Mr. Bradwick made reference to the fact from whence we've come. We've got to understand it if we are going to put it in perspective and understand where we are going. According to the World Population Clock and the US government census, the world's population is currently 7 billion. And there is an estimated 1.3 billion people living in the world who are living in poverty. The reports published by the Food and Agricultural Organization tells us that a total of 842 million people between 2011 and 2013 were, or if you do the maths, it says 1 in 8 people in the world were estimated to be suffering from chronic hunger, meaning they're not getting enough food to conduct an active life. Since 1990 to 1992, the total number of undernourished has fallen, however, by about 17%, and according to the World Bank, 4.6% of Latin America and Caribbean are also living in poverty. Now, it's the mandate of the Department of Agriculture to develop sustainable food production systems and attain a level of food security as a backup mechanism to imported foods. And since the Department of Agriculture is charged with the responsibility of nurturing food production, the department must, and I emphasize, must devise ways and means to encourage local food production. As our theme, Youth in Agriculture, a must, food security and cultural sustainability, a plus, indicates none of this will be possible if our young people are not prepared and trained to assume their roles as leaders to ensure that both our agriculture and our culture is sustained and indeed it continues to thrive. And I have to pause here to acknowledge the the theme of Agricultural Week, because you might have missed when it was said that the person whose theme was chosen was a member of the Department of the Ministry of Education, and she passed away prematurely last week. And so I think we just want to, in her honor, give a round of applause for her to having won this year. In 2015, the Center for Professional Development and Community Education at the college responded to the needs in the agricultural sector, and they're now offering courses that support and develop agriculture, culture, and sustainability. And subsequently, one of the ways the department, through the ministry, has devised to train youth is through the operation of the long-awaited greenhouse project. Currently, there are 3 greenhouses made up of 7 entities, and it has been agreed that IBT, the company that owns the intellectual property, will complete all of these greenhouses. Upon the completion of the greenhouses, the government is to negotiate with the IBT group, the current owners, to operate one of the greenhouses, which is basically 1/3. And this will be used from the government's point as a laboratory, and I want to explain what that means. What it means is that using their expertise, the scientific knowledge of greenhouses, they will operate one of the greenhouses for a period of time. The H.L. Laverty-Stowell Community College will provide the basis for that expertise to be transferred. We will also use it as a laboratory for teaching students from the Virgin Islands Technical School to be able to learn the technology behind the greenhouses. You would have heard the Minister of Education on the opening of that school emphasize the fact that we are going to be teaching agricultural science. Another 1/3 of the greenhouses will be used for local farmers, individuals who are interested in producing food using the greenhouse technology. And it is important to understand that you don't need a big space to produce a large amount of food. We envision and we are encouraging those who have the expertise also to produce flowers, because the greenhouses that you see up there should be able to produce all the flowers that we need, and we don't have to further import flowers into this country. So that helps to stimulate that industry and to build the industry where not only jobs, but entrepreneurship can be encouraged. And then the other 1/3 of the greenhouses will be leased to a company through a local entity in which they will just operate it as a business to produce food for local consumption and, we hope, for export. And so we look forward to the use of this technology with intrigue to educate and stimulate the young people of the community through the necessary training and coursework in crop production. Because the greenhouses are well on their way to completion, and this development shines great potential on the industry. It is important that we learn to interpret agriculture and regard it as the scientific discipline that it has always been. With the change in times, recognizing and applying new technology is the clear and unmistakable way forward. Now, we have taken quite a fair amount of time in a very deliberate way to get to this position where we are with the greenhouses, because we want to ensure that the foundation that is established will lead way into the future. And hopefully, by this time, so next year when we have agricultural exhibition and Farmers Week, we should see large amounts of food that have been produced from the greenhouses, because food is only as secure as our ability to produce it for ourselves. And while trade is a reliable source, we must ensure that as much of our food supply as possible is grown and produced locally. The plant nursery at the department is now stocked with a variety of early bearing fruit trees and seedlings ready to be planted. And it is of strategic importance that we deliberately plan how we will develop and sustain agriculture. And at this point, I want to encourage all those who have green thumbs, who love planting, to plant a fruit tree or two around your houses. If every person plant 1 or 2 fruit trees around your houses, in a few years, we will have more fruits than we can all consume. Towards this end, we must face up to the following issues. Extremely important that we understand. 1, ensure that our young people are prepared to farm using the state-of-the-art techniques to produce food that is healthy, affordable, sustainable, and culturally relevant. Number 2, identify and tackle the strategic problems facing the department and the agricultural sector. Number 3, we must raise agricultural production. Number 4, we must improve the services that we provide to all farmers, whether you're using traditional means or whether you're going to be involved in the technological production of food. And we must strive to reduce production input costs. That is important because one of the things that we have sought to do as a government is to embody the whole concept of food security for these Virgin Islands. We have worked tirelessly to improve our fishing industry, and I think we've made great strides in that arena. We've improved the services provided at the fishing complex, and I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition publicly for his continued support in the work that we are doing with the fishing industry. We are encouraging more and more of our farmers now to get involved in deep sea fishing and longline because they now understand and recognize the potential. So using our fishing industry to bring the fish to market and the greenhouses to produce the fruits, vegetables, and other food sources that we need. We see the potential for food security according to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations as being within the reach of these Virgin Islands. And the Virgin Islands can become a beacon to show how it can be done, just doing it simple and one step at a time. It is extremely important that we work diligently, hand in hand, to ensure that ultimately we can produce. We have the fish, we just need to bring it in. We now have the greenhouses, we need to get them finished so that they can produce the food that we know that they are capable of producing. The department and farming sector will have to find ways and means to combat the challenges of diseases, the challenges of high production costs, the challenges associated with cheaper food imports, and the variations and various issues surrounding climatic conditions to continue to produce food locally. I want to underscore the point that the chairman just made about climate change, because it seems like we still have not really understand that climate change is real. And if you have any doubts, you look at the news coming out of the United States in the last week about the blizzard that has taken hold of the northeastern United States. Records amount of snow have been falling on the New England states, against the background of the droughts that have taken place in many places in the world, against the background of increasingly difficult times ahead with respect to hurricanes that are likely to be worse than we have ever seen. We have to come to terms with the idea that climate change is upon us, and everything that we can do to mitigate against it is extremely important. It's no sense we live in our small corner and think that climate change is only something that will affect bigger countries, because all of the studies, all of the science behind climate change clearly show that it is the small countries, the island states, that are going to be hit the most, that are going to be the most affected by the variance of climate change. And so I have traveled far and wide helping to raise the anthem with respect to small island developing states and what needs to be done to protect the island communities throughout the world, whether you live in the Indian Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, or the Pacific. Once you live on an island, you're going to be affected by climate change, because rising sea levels are a reality. And any one of us understand, if the sea level rises and it destroys our beaches, destroys our coastline, it will have severe impact on our economy and our tourism industry. And to mitigate against those wider issues, we have to do the things that are necessary. And one of the things that we can do is in the area of food security. We can do it. All of us working together can ensure that no matter how these climatic changes evolve, we will be able to take care of ourselves. And I'm sure we'll be able to help take care of others around closer to us. And so I take this opportunity to applaud the Chief Agricultural Officer and his team for their consistent hard work in developing this critical industry. And at this time, I'd also like to celebrate the fact that we now have 2 young female local veterinary doctors that have been added to the department, Dr. Nadia George and Dr. Letitia Martin. Please give them a round of applause. Their interest and their commitment in the field, I believe, is noteworthy, and I thank them for their willingness and their commitment and the efforts that they have made to give back to the Virgin Islands community. I want to express a heartfelt thank you to our farmers, those especially who have been involved in the traditional farming, for sustaining the sector despite the economic challenges. And we've had some economic challenges here at Paraquita Bay over the last year or two with respect to water. And we are just about have it completely sorted out. And so all those who are accustomed of doing the farming here should be much, much happier now to know that water will be in constant supply. We want to thank them for their continued commitment to keeping the industry alive. And I wish to thank all those who have contributed thus far for the coming into being of Farmers Week once again and the continued success of our farming industry. And before I close, I just want to apologize once again on behalf of the Honorable Premier, who was involved in an international conference call. He had hoped to be here by 11 a.m., but clearly that has not happened, so I want to apologize on his behalf. And so it is my pleasure now to officially declare Farmers Week officially open, and I want to thank you. God bless you, and God continue to bless these Virgin Islands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for declaring Farmers Week open, and that was surely an eloquent and informative speech. And to stress the importance of food security, I think DFID, Department for International Development, have identified 2 key areas for ensuring that we have food security. And what they have suggested is that in order to have increasing availability of food at prices the poor can afford, that would be one way of ensuring that there's food security. Secondly, providing jobs and incomes that will give poor people the means to access food. So those are important statements to enhance what was said before. And of course, we do look forward to seeing the greenhouses coming into production. That will make a big difference to the food available on the local market. We'll now move on to our next presentation. We invite the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill, to make his presentation.
I wish to thank the Deputy Premier for inviting me to speak this morning. And because agriculture is in my blood, I barely made it because yesterday I had an event in my district which I don't know why, but I decided to change it from Friday to Thursday. And it worked out properly good. Now this event was to take place on the 6th of February, and I was looking towards that date. And in fact, I had an argument with a lady in Virgin Gorda. I tell her, I knew it was the 6th, I mean, when I got the invitation at first. But she got the news before me that it had changed. But this is it was shifted because of other business, and this happens many times when ministers especially will have appointments fixed here, but then other people away make appointments for them they don't even know about. And then the next thing you hear, they had to be off. I had to be at home with a discussion with somebody or some people who came in and so on. So this happens, you know. But I am glad to be here because I have been attending agriculture exhibitions from the time I was going to primary school on Virgin Gorda. And for the exhibition, we had to be engaged in taking the cattle and livestock to the exhibition site. We went back home with several prizes for pasture and cattle. I am sure many of the men here this morning were involved in that kind of exercise. I wouldn't ask you to show hands, but I know of some of them myself. That was many moons ago. I am still keen and interested in agriculture, especially the planting of fruit trees, and I was glad when I heard the minister emphasize that while he was speaking, and other crops. Some months ago, I was speaking to the Honorable Deputy Premier about agricultural matters, and he was telling me how his grandfather took so much interest in his farm, and he made sure that the best of the crops was for the harvest festival. And I will emphasize this, a tradition which has been going on in this territory for many years, and which I hope will long continue. There is some reason for having harvest festivals and setting a time apart to give thanks to God for, I think so, the pastor mentioned that all good gifts around us are sent from heaven above. So we must keep up that tradition. Farming is in my blood, and I am sure that many of the men and ladies here today will remember how early we had to get up, milk the cows, and attend to the animals before getting ready for school. We will also remember shipping day from the eastern Tortola with Virgin Gorda and Anegada on the first Tuesday in the month, and from western Tortola and Jocelyn Dykes on the third Tuesday in the month. It was quite a sight to watch and see the sailboats go into St. Thomas loaded with cattle, livestock, with other fruits, vegetables, and ground provisions. So we have produced a lot before, and it can be done, and it must be done. If not all the stuff was taken to St. Thomas in sailing boats. And if not all the boats were built here in the Virgin Islands by shipwrights in East End, Rotong, West End, and some were even built, believe it or not, in Virgin Gorda and Anegada. Most of the boats were engaged in taking cargo to St. Thomas and bringing back food. But as tourism progressed in St. Thomas, the supply of cargo from the British Virgin Islands just faded away. But the BVI doors were open to tourism, and there are indications that tourism will develop in these islands, and then there will be the need for more food production to feed the increased population and the visitors. I mentioned in my letter to the publisher in the Agricultural Bulletin that when the Colonial Development and Welfare was established in 1938, provision was made to borrow money to loan the farmers to help in the raising of cattle. The farmers would mortgage their land to the government, and when the payment was completed, the government would return their land to the farmers. But in some cases, where the farmers did not have ownership, a document to prove ownership to the land, and was just using the government land, I don't know how much rent they paid, if they paid any. And since they did not have ownership to the land and was just using it, the then governor of the Leeward Islands, one of the most inspired governors of the Leeward Islands that I know about, and we were under the Leeward Islands, Sir Kenneth William Blackburn, knowing the condition that there were farmers without any documents for the land, agreed that they could have loans money too, based on their character. I don't think that happened too often. This went on very well, and farmers paid up their mortgage and loans, those who just had loans only. In thinking about that, my thoughts are that some scheme could be considered to help the young men and young ladies too, to attract them in agriculture. Because from what I have seen at other exhibitions, young boys and girls do win prizes for some agricultural products. And from what I have seen here now, I would use the words from the good book, and children too may come. And we saw their performance this morning. Yes, youth in agriculture is a must, but the youth must be helped with a good start and food security along with cultural sustainability a plus. I understand that to mean that we must not let our culture be lost, and we must be able to have food by producing more of it here. You know, some of our people may not fancy what is produced here because they may think this is not as good as that coming from the States or from England or from Europe. But it's just as good or better. I would like to congratulate the Ministry of Natural Resources and Labor and the Agricultural Department for what is happening and what is to happen. As you heard the explanation there about the greenhouse. Especially when the greenhouse gets going. Farmers and producers must be able to produce crops, and I am sure they would be interested in the greenhouse when that gets going. I wish all farmers and producers to be able to produce good crops, and I heard one farmer speaking on Thursday morning about some of the difficulties, and I feel sure that some of these difficulties will be overcome in due course. Because I have seen what happened with the fishing house. I went there myself to see what happened. And great things happened there. And I believe it could happen in agriculture too. Please have a good day and enjoy yourselves not only here, but in Anegada, Bojingara, and Justin Day. Thank you very much indeed, and continue to do the work.
Thank you very much, Honorable O'Neill, for your historical speech as usual. We'd like to recognize the presence of our Premier and Minister of Finance, Dr. the Honorable Orlando Smith, OBE. So, Honorable Premier, could you please come and deliver, sir?
Good morning. When I first heard of this year's theme for Farmers Week, youth in agriculture is a must. Food security and cultural sustainability is a plus. I was quite pleased. You see, the theme continuously reflects my government's position in building a sustainable agricultural sector and the importance of our young people in doing so. I also know the recurrent theme for the last 2 years have had a strong focus on youth in agriculture. This is consistent with my own vision of equipping and preparing our young people to be leaders of industries in the BVI. Back in the day, youth in agriculture was the norm. From very early in life, we were taught by our parents how to plow the field through the fish line and knead the dough to prepare the tart. We were taught how to whip the guava to make jam, grate the coconut to make the sugar cakes, pick the lemongrass, eucalyptus, or mint to steep the tea, and I can go on and on. We must go back to basics and teach those and other fundamentals. Because if agriculture is to be long-lived, if we are going to ensure food security and cultural sustainability, the value of hard work must be taught, and knowledge and skills must be passed on. But we must also do more. I envision that the youth could bring a very different and innovative perspective to agriculture. We have recently successfully integrated our 2 key economic sectors into education curricula. I envision that we could do the same thing with the agricultural sector. Already in some ways, it is entrenched within the successful garden program in some of our schools. But beyond that, we will improve access to training and education, and we have agreed that one of the greenhouse facilities is dedicated for teaching purposes. I also envision that the youths, many of whom are very technologically savvy, will embrace farming through the use of new technology in farming. I expect that they will find ways beyond the traditional methods to make farming more relevant to their generation. I often say that even though the natural beauty of our Virgin Islands is breathtaking, we must find new ways to sell more than sun, sea, and sand. in a few short months, our new cruise pier will be finished. And we must prepare to deliver new experiences to our visitors. I foresee that one such experience could be agricultural tourism. This is where our visitors and residents are able to tour greenhouses and farms to see and taste foods in their natural state. This is also an opportunity for them to see live demonstrations of how local delicacies are made. Delicacies such as tamarind stew, mango stew, gooseberry stew, and so on. So we need the young people to start thinking about youth harvest festivals and conducting youth agricultural tours. They must be able to make their unique marks on both the agricultural and tourism sectors, especially through such areas as food tourism and craft tourism, for example. People travel from all over the world to experience a culture and cuisine that is unique to a country or a region. Food tourism is becoming big. For example, last November, travelers took advantage of the opportunity to taste the best of the BVI during a food fete and Anegada Lobster Fest. We were treated to a variety of local culinary dishes prepared using local produce. Additionally, we highlighted the restaurants and local dishes as part of our tourism product. This is how we must push food tourism. We create opportunities for the world to get a taste so that they can come and come again. But we need our children to get involved to do their part, to grow their produce and harvest their crops for sale. They're the ones we're looking to carry the legacy of the BVI forward. I was thrilled, for example, recently when I looked at one of the local stations and watched as a young man, a young Virgin Islander, Jalil Howe, demonstrated his skills in making local morbi. He had learned it from his grandmother. As elders, this is how we pass the culinary baton to the next generation who will run with it. This year's Farmers Week is focused not only on food security, but also on cultural sustainability. Indeed, we must be innovative with our natural resources. In fact, many of you in my generation would remember days when we made necklaces and bracelets from the jumbi beads, or earrings and brooches from the sandbox tree. These are the unique ideas that we need to continue passing on to our children. Let us teach them the cultural art of plaiting the Thai grass to make those fashionable hats and baskets that are always a hit with tourists and locals. These are the unique ideas that we need to continue passing on to our children. How about teaching them to make a fun toy like a spinning top from a tree limb and shaving the limb into the form of a top? These are the unique ideas that we need to continue passing on. How about teaching them to weave baskets or how to make a fish pot with guard wrists? These cultural skills, this cultural legacy is credited as being significant in the early years of developing the Virgin Islands tourism product and forged a path for today's arts and crafts vendors. These are the types of business ideas that help to grow our economy and give our tourists that one-of-a-kind souvenir, a memorable gift that generates conversations in homes across the world and entices their friends to put the BVI on their next travel agenda. Agriculture for us back in the day was a natural part of life, but for children today we must entice them and generate their interest at all levels. Youth are the hope for agriculture's future. We must prepare them. We have to teach them how to play a major role in food security. As Minister of Finance, they also recognize the importance of developing the sector with an agribusiness approach to facilitate further diversification of this territory's economy. With this strategy, youth recognize agriculture as a viable business opportunity. They will be engaged and encouraged to take up careers in agriculture. I'm therefore confident that as our students experience greenhouse technology at work, we will see a new generation of agricultural specialists. I know that the Honorable Dr. Pickering, Minister of Natural Resources and Labor, is passionate about the direction of food security. Agribusiness is not an out-of-the-box idea, as essentially this is how our forefathers sustained themselves in the post-plantation era. And while this Yes, team focuses on youth agriculture. Today, I must recognize all the farmers. You toil daily, contributing to the territory's agricultural legacy. Most, not all of you have dedicated to this industry since you were youth. It is through your commitment that this industry has been sustained. You are indeed helping to build a better Virgin Islands, and for this I want to thank you. I also commend the Chief Agricultural Officer, Mr. Bevan Bradford, and his team for their role in managing the operations of the department. The support you provide to the industry is invaluable. In advance, I congratulate all the winners of the various categories over the next few days. I look forward to speaking with you personally as I visit the booths and view the exhibits. I want to encourage the residents and visitors to come and share in the activities and support this vital sector of the economy. Remember, young people, the future of the Virgin Islands is yours. You must plant the seed you want today to reap the benefits that you will see tomorrow. Congratulations to our Farmers' Week celebrations. I encourage all to participate. Please enjoy the week's activities. Thank you.
Mr. Brathwaite spoke earlier on about the entrepreneurship in agriculture. This program began last year, and we have had a number of students from the BVI High School, also the college, who have participated in this program. And it is a success so far. They're learning about the technical aspects of agriculture. We've even had a student from Virgin Gorda, so it's catching on. So we are doing that until we can meet the need of the community. We'll now move to the next item on the agenda, and that's distribution of the major prizes. And this will be done by Dr. the Honorable Kedrick Pickering and Mrs. Eunice Donovan, Agricultural Marketing Officer.
We have come to the part of the program where we now recognize our farmers for their hard work, and also the schools for the poster competition and the science projects competition. So first we will award the little people, the lower and the upper primary schools. Students, as soon as I call your name, please come forward quickly. Our poster competition and our science competition, they were under the focus, Youth in Agriculture. We have two different categories, the lower primary and the upper primary. I will now start with the lower primary. In first place, we have Miss Iria Bob from the Lenova Delville Primary School. Second place, we have Mr. Ruben Noreen from the Isabella Morris School. Third place is Kiwan Linton, Lenova Delville. First place for the upper primary, we have Suelin Charles, Lenova Delville. Second place goes to Khadija Foy, Isabella Morris. And third place goes to Irisha Bob, Lenora Delville. Congratulations, all you students, and those prizes were sponsored by VI Books and Things. Thank you very much, VI Books and Things, for your sponsorship. And now we go to the science competition. This competition is sponsored by National Bank and also by the Ministry of Education and Culture. And the winner for this year's science project competition is the BVI Seventh-day Adventist School. The announcement for the 2015 National Awards. Best Young Farmer, sponsored by Banco Popular. This award goes to Mr. Orville McMaster. Best Poultry Farmer, sponsored by Fort Garden Center, goes to Miss Joy Abbey. Best Terrace Plot, sponsored by Hannies, goes to Mr. Renadis Donovan. Best Crop Farmer, sponsored by VI Motors, goes to Mr. Aaron Hill. Best Orchard Farmer goes to Mr. Orville McMaster, sponsored by LJD VI Block. Best Mix Farmer, sponsored by DNB Trucking and Aliman Cordero Galeno and Lee, goes to Mr. Renadis Donovan. Best Backyard Farmer, sponsored by Scotia Bank, goes to Miss Madeleine Ronnie. Best Livestock Farmer goes to Mr. Ishmael Hodge, sponsored by Digicel. We also have a national award for some young upcoming farmers, and that goes to the best school garden, and that goes to none other than the BVI Seventh-day Adventist School. And this award is sponsored by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Labor and the Department of Agriculture. And now, the champion farmer for 2015 under the theme Youth in Agriculture, AMOS, Food Security and Cultural Sustainability, a plus, is no other than Farmer Renadis Ayuki Donovan. And this award is sponsored by D&B Trucking. We really would like to extend our thanks and appreciation for D&B Trucking for sponsoring the champion farmer for the past years. Thank you.
We'll now have a selection by the Seventh-day Adventist School. expedite the process, we'll call Mr. Vernon Richards, veterinary assistant, to give the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, students, a pleasant evening. It gives me great pleasure to be here to thanking you great people. Firstly, I would like to thank the Almighty God for giving us the opportunity to be here to celebrate yet another Farmers Week under the theme Youth in Agriculture a Must, Food Security and Culture Sustainability a Plus. Many thanks extended to the Governor, His Excellency Mr. John T. Duncan. Special thanks to the Premier, Minister of Finance, Dr. the Honorable D. Orlando Smith. Thanks to the Minister of Natural Resources and Labor, Dr. the Honorable Kendrick Pickering, and his supporting staff who assisted where necessary to make this day fruitful. In addition, I extend gratitude to the entire House of Assembly. Many thanks to the entire staff of the Department of Agriculture who worked tirelessly to bring this Farmers Week into manifestation, into this reality manifested before you. The farmers, today and throughout this Farmers Week, your hard work and contribution will be recognized. We appreciate the role that you played in feeding the nation, and I will extend a profound thank you to you. Thanks to the various sponsors, the vendors, the performers, and all the youths that took part in the various competitions to enforce our theme, Youths in Agriculture. A special thanks to the media houses, GIS, and especially Ms. Felisa Fenty for doing such an immaculate job in taking the information to the people. I also want to take the time out to encourage everyone to come out to our week of events coming up this week and bring the kids and have a blessed time. I thank you.